Today in the 21st century, most people have been taught that the dinosaurs roamed the Earth 65 million years ago and mysteriously died off after a comet hit the Earth. Somehow, over millions of years, the surviving dinosaurs then evolved into the birds of today. This idea, though taught in almost every school and major university, has not been supported with evidence from history or the geologic record. It gives no explanation for the vast fossil graveyards found throughout the world, nor does it explain how many kinds of animals found in the fossil record remain alive to this day. Is there a better explanation? Is there scientific and archaeological evidence that gives a simple explanation for what happened to the dinosaurs? In this documentary, you will be given evidence that the dinosaurs have always existed with man. You will discover that ancient man frequently wrote of interactions with dinosaurs throughout recorded history, and you will see evidence to verify this. You will also be shown evidence that there could even be some dinosaurs that have survived to the present day. Finally, we will examine one of the most accurate and trusted historical records known to man, the Bible. The Bible gives a far different version of what happened in the history of ancient man that caused the extinction of most dinosaurs. We will look at its claims in light of the evidence that has been presented in this documentary. Before we start, consider this. We all have beliefs and ideas about what we think is true. These are called our presuppositions. Sometimes our presuppositions are true and sometimes they are false. When considering evidence, it is very difficult to set aside the presuppositions that we hold and look at evidence with an unbiased open mind. Truth is sometimes very hard to accept, especially if it is contrary to what we have believed. Much of the evidence that you will see in this video has been ignored by modern-day science, but a close examination of the evidence will reveal some startling conclusions. In 1841, the first use of the term Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizard, was created by the famous British anatomist and paleontologist Sir Richard Owen. He used the term for the first time at a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science held in Plymouth. After that meeting, the word dinosaur rapidly became a popular term to describe these giant lizards that were being discovered by paleontologists. During the 1800s, after the first discovery of large dinosaur fossils, scientists began to search the rocks for clues to what had happened to these terrible lizards and other creatures that were buried in the earth. Unfortunately, they became focused on the rocks and buried fossils and failed to examine history for evidence of what had happened to these creatures. So what exactly does the historical record reveal about the dinosaurs? Remember that the word dinosaur was not even created until 1841. Even up until 1891, some dictionaries did not contain the word dinosaur. Prior to this, dinosaurs were known by other names. Every culture had names for them. For example, the name that you are probably the most familiar with is dragon. Even up until 1946, the word dragon was found in dictionaries and has in its definition this telling description. Names from other cultures include some of the following. Dragon history is nearly universal throughout the world's ancient cultures. Where did this global concept originate? Why is it so universal among cultures who were separated by continents? How did societies throughout the world describe, record, draw, etch, sew, and carve these creatures with such uniformity if they had not been eyewitnesses of them? Let's first examine the written historical record and then move on to the physical evidence. The reports of dragons range from personal encounter reports and science papers to legendary stories like Beowulf and the Loch Ness Monster. A well-known old science book, the Historia Animalium, claims that dragons were not extinct in the 1500s, but the animals were said to be extremely rare and relatively small by then. In 1572, a scientist named Ulysses Aldrovandus carefully described a small dragon seen along a farm road in northern Italy. The rare creature was killed by the farmer when he struck it on the head with his walking stick. Aldrovandus obtained the dead body and made measurements and a drawing. He even had the animal mounted for a museum. It had a long neck, a very long tail, and a fat body. The skeletons of a number of ancient reptile-like creatures called Tanystropius have similarities to the basic description that he gave. One dragon story from the ancient land of Sumer in Babylon tells of the hero Gilgamesh. He decided to make a name for himself by traveling to a distant land to cut great cedar trees needed for his city. He reached the forest with 50 volunteers and discovered a huge reptile-like animal which ate trees and reeds. The story simply says that Gilgamesh killed it and cut off its head for a trophy. Thousands of dragon stories and pictures can be found in ancient Chinese books and art. One legend tells about a famous Chinese man named Yu. The story says after the great worldwide flood, Yu surveyed the land of China and divided it into sections. He built channels to drain the water off to the sea and help make the land livable again. Many snakes and dragons were driven off from the marshlands when Yu created the new farmlands. Some old Chinese books even tell of a family that kept dragons and raised them to use their blood and body parts for medicines. In 1611, the emperor appointed the post of royal dragon feeder. An Irish writer recorded an encounter with a large beast with iron-like spikes on its tail which pointed backwards. Its head had the shape of a horse's, and it had thick legs with strong claws. These details match features of dinosaurs like Kentrosaurus and Stegosaurus, which had sharp pointed spines on their tails, thick legs, strong claws, and long horse-like skulls. The respected Greek explorer and historian Herodotus described small flying reptiles in ancient Egypt and Arabia. These animals sound amazingly like the small pterodactyl Rhamphorhynchus. They had the same snake-like body and bat-like wings. Many had been killed near the city of Buto in Arabia. He was shown a canyon with many piles of their backbones and ribs. Herodotus said that these animals could sometimes be found in the spice groves. They were small in size and of various colors. Large numbers would sometimes gather in the frankincense trees. When workers wanted to gather the tree's valuable juices, they would use smelly smoke to drive the flying reptiles away. The well-respected Grecian philosopher Aristotle said that in his time it was common knowledge that creatures like this also existed in Ethiopia. Similar animals, 3 feet long, were also described in India by the geographer Strabo. In Pliny's book Natural History, written around 70 AD, he says, "Africa produces elephants, but it is India that produces the largest, as well as the dragon." Claudius Aelians, a Greek military writer of the 2nd century who wrote De Natura Animalium around 200 AD, in his work stated, "The Phrygian history also states that dragons are born which reach 10 paces in length." 10 paces, that's about 30 feet. The city of Neurlic in France was renamed in honor of the killing of a dragon there. This animal was reported to be bigger than an ox and had long, sharp, pointed horns on its head. In 1271 AD, the great explorer Marco Polo recorded in his writings that the Chinese emperor had dragons that pulled his chariot on special occasions. And in his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, Polo records the following about the Chinese province of Kharzan. He states, "Here are seen huge serpents 10 paces in length and 10 spans in girth of the body. At the forepart near the head they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, with eyes larger than a 4-penny loaf and very glaring. The jaws are wide enough to swallow a man, the teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any other kind of animal can approach them without terror. Others are met with of smaller size, being 8, 6, or 5 paces long." An Anglo-Saxon chronicle from